We should.
This is Near Enough to Hell, a Ghosts to Build Paso story, part 18. We have a full table back this week, everybody. I'm very happy to see both Daniel and Wes in the same call again. Gasp. Yay. Let's take a look at what we got going on, and then we're going to jump into the day phase. Wes, just so you know, we went ahead and gave you the XP for Mother Calvo. You actually have an advance. I meant to let you know, I totally forgot about that.
Oh,
Yeah, you actually had advanced based on the XP you would have gained last session. So you can think about that for a moment.
got it.
But just taking a look at our hunters, their current conditions and such like, Mother Ruth Calvo, who was presently off in Clear Springs last episode, has three conditions: most beloved, Antonio's guiding hand, and marked by Clear Springs. Graves, who did escape the collapsed tin mine um, after some harrowing experiences in the dark, has three conditions: death touch, an omen of the Vrykalakas, and the breaker of my own rules. Oh, that's right. We did change that condition too. That one's fun. Diamond Dave, who was basically defending, helping his employees survive a shootout at the Red Rock, just has on his best behavior. And Andrew Harrington, the marshal, who was trying to lead an assemblage that got interrupted by a shootout by the Ghost Riders, who then managed to talk them down before having an interesting conversation with the cellmate Del Sol. Just has arm and a sling, just that, the one-armed marshal. And that is the current state of our hunters. We are at a full slate of three threats: the Ghost Riders of Sawtooth Ridge, the Grieving Town of Clear Springs, and the Blue Boy. Um, Two of which have largely been ignored. So I'm going to be thinking about that today. Though there was not a clue gathered for the Blue Boy, there was an opportunity for a clue gathered. It was a situation which Alma Stackpole's butler Wellington um basically made the arrangements of, like, if you have, like, if you get a meeting with Alma Stackpole and you present yourself as supportive of this blue boy figure and like are like similarly as interested in it as she will reveal something to you. So that is like a threshold with which to get the clue. um so there's just one clue on Blue Boy. For Ghost Riders, we have 7 clues available on a complexity 4 question. So we might be ready to tackle that first question very soon. And as for the Grieving Town of Clear Springs, we have 3 clues available on the complexity 4 question of how can it be stopped from harming the living. So a lot of stuff is happening. Um, and now that we're going back into the dawn phase, just wanting to double check, did we have any outstanding Janus masks from anyone at all that needed narration? No? Very good. In that case, then, Mother Ruth, do you have an advancement that you decided on?
I am going to be taking my custom move.
Oh, I don't recall if we've talked about this. I'm very. Do you have one in mind, or are you going to work on it?
I am working on two things.
Okay.
One of them is similar to night work,
Mm,
where it's essentially Mother Roof does not participate in night phase stuff, but will like kind of direct the unseen if she determines to, if she does a certain thing. I'm trying to figure out the payoff for that, where that fits within, whether if that is dealing with the boxes for the lost.
mm.
But I also like the idea of adapting Cruel as the Harlot's Curse from the American into Mother
Oh.
Ruth, where it's when you indulge in your vice,
Oh,
uh,
that's really good for her.
alone, yeah, roll with I would probably have sensitivity,
You're just going to sleep
because
around El Paso?
I'm kind of leaning into, because we've had so many interactions with ghosts and stuff like that, that she's able to kind of like something
Mm.
to doing with like being able to entangle with spectral spirits.
Oh.
I'm fulfilling Dan Aykroyd's dream of ghost fucking. So like I that might be the one that I lean more towards,
Holy
is that
shit.
like, yeah.
Fuck
And
the
so
ghost. Fuck the
yeah,
ghost.
because I know also it's much easier to convince a ghost to have sex with an old woman than it is one of our fellow Vigilance Committee people, but we'll see. So we're working on that one.
Awesome. Then before we start the day phase, I figured I would check, do we want to tackle the first question on the Ghost Riders, or would we like to hold off until maybe the end of the day phase? What are we thinking?
I think we're starting to get. I have something that maybe we can launch pad into us answering that. But I might need some help, kind of formulating like the last kind of clue or
Well, if
two.
we want to tackle it, if we're kind of like feeling that, then why don't we take a like 10-minute break where
Mhm.
I y'all can discuss that, and then we can come back on recording and you can share your theory.
Perfect.
All right, let's do that. All right. I want to hear the theory. Let's take a look at the question and the associated clues. Um, so the question for the Ghost Riders of Sawtooth Ridge, there we go, is why do the Ghost Riders want Jimmy Pike dead? We have 7 clues. It looks like you have used 5 of them. I'm gonna review the 5 you've marked, and I want to hear your theory. So we have the clue that the Rangers had humiliated Jimmy Pike during Ranger training, Captain Vanderhorn having an opium addiction, the photograph with the fifth unknown ranger, that siblings of a lone ghost ranger in the mining town. Oh, sightings, not siblings, sightings of a lone ghost ranger in the mining town. And then a rumor that Jimmy Pike is actually half Apache and was raised by the Apache. Okay, using those clues, let's hear your theory. Why do they want Jimmy Pike dead?
Yes, would you like to take this since you had this sort of inciting theory?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. So, looking at the clues that we have, discussing that we've determined. So, uh, the Rangers are trying to kill Jimmy Pike because Jimmy Pike killed them. Because throughout Jimmy Pike's entire time going through Ranger training and being a part of the Rangers, those specific the Ghost Riders of Sawtooth Ridge, those specific fellers, uh, pranked and picked on Jimmy Pike for being half Apache, and being raised by the Apache. Um, Now there was during this time, there was a fifth unknown ranger that was in a photograph with them, who, one, it might lead you to believe that maybe he was the worst one and that's why he died first or something, but he hasn't come back. In actuality, that writer was killed by these Ghost Riders, and that started the ensuing standoff between Jimmy Pike and the rest. So that fifth rider and Jimmy Pike actually were friends with one another. They got along with each other. That fifth rider helped out Jimmy and like stuck up for Jimmy. Something happened to that fifth rider that set Jimmy, like his death set Jimmy off, to which Jimmy got revenge on the rest of the riders of Sawtooth Ridge. And utilizing, and what did we say for Captain Vanderhorn's opium addiction?
The
How
f-
that plays?
the fifth rider knew
Yeah.
about that.
And
The
that's what,
and
yeah.
Captain Vanderhorn felt that was blackmail because the fifth rider knew Captain Vanderhorn was a piece of shit and
So they
knew
took that
about
out.
some,
Yeah.
maybe even you can extrapolate from that he knew about some of the less appropriate for a
Savory.
Texas Ranger activities of all of these Texas Rangers.
Yeah.
And they were not down with a dude who didn't like them knowing that shit.
A sweater poorly knit, essentially. And if you tug at one of those threads, the whole thing would unravel. And so the Ghost Riders of Sawtooth Ridge took it upon themselves to maintain justice and honor in the great state of Texas. And so they dealt with a problem that would cause problems for them. And thus Jimmy Pike got revenge on them, and now they are tracking him down. That's
Mm.
that squirrely little fuck Jimmy Pike,
Okay,
which we
I'm
find
into it.
out not squirrely, actually a good person.
Oh, I'm into it. I'm into it. That is a complete theory. All right, so that is going to be a +1 to the roll. Wes, do you want to tackle that since you
Yeah,
drove the theory there?
let's do that here.
Let's hear it.
Um, Motherfucker. Uh, that's a 3. Snake Eyes +1.
Mm. This will be a very fun day phase for me. Um, because your theory is wrong. And this is, this is technically a threshold question, but it's an either or. So it does not mean that it is unlocked. It means that you've grossly misjudged something about the situation. I will, without narrating a full scene now, just in keeping with the spirit of the game, the consequences of this miss is going to involve an escalation where the Ghost Riders get, similar to what we saw at the Red Rock Cantina, in their confusion, they think they stumble on the location Jimmy Pike, and the ensuing shootout is going to claim lives of El Paso citizens, some of which are familiar faces for you. Some side characters that you know and maybe even love are going to get taken out in the crossfire. In the escalating state of the Ghost Riders confusion. I will also note that since we are using in part some of the rules of how things are changing in the between like procedure, that the specific threat masks can be marked individually in lieu of everyone marking a mask, for the sake of bumping up a roll. So if that's something you'd want to do, we do have the Mask of Revenge available. So that's where we stand. That is my miscomplication is going to involve that. What are we thinking we want to do about that? Gonna let it ride, or are we gonna change the future?
I So you're saying that we can mark the Sawtooth Ridge mask instead of
Mm-hmm.
everybody
Mm-hmm.
marking a mask,
Mm-hmm.
and that will bump up the result.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is the question that I want to relay to everybody. We can do that, and it'll maintain that people do not die,
Mhm.
or we can let it ride and save that for a rainy day.
I think we should mark it because I did put in quite a lot of effort in saving people from the Ghost Riders last session.
Yeah. Yeah, and
And
Alex is evil.
Alex
Alex
is
is
evil.
evil.
You would kill those people.
He would. All of them, probably. I see that little
Yeah.
shit-eating grin.
Yeah. I'm gonna mark the Mask of
Yeah,
Revenge. Mother Calvo's gonna put on the Mask of Revenge.
same.
Mhm.
Okay. Each hunter describes a time when they meted out their own justice. Is there anyone who wants to do that now, or shall we hold off?
Yeah. This is gonna be a pretty simple, cut and dry, straight to the point.
Mm.
Um, during the building of the church in El Paso, like the brick and mortar church of El Paso, um, there was an interaction with God, who runs the general store that we have here?
B Tessa
Tess,
Schuster or her wife,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, B. Tessa Schuster. Um, and there was an issue with one of Mother Calvo's followers not speaking the language very well here. And B. Tessa Schuster took advantage of that and overcharged for like nails for like the putting together the building and everything, just like nails and everything like that. A very simple purchase, metal nails that shouldn't cost too much, and like used a bunch of the church's money and took advantage of this guy. And so during the night, Mother Calvo went to B. Tessa Schuster's house, took B. Tessa Schuster's chickens that she had, each one, got them into a coop herself, walked the cart down to B. Tessa Schuster's general store and used those nails to snap their necks and then nailed them to the front door. And then had a scrap of paper that had "Do unto others as God would do as you would have them do unto you."
Don't fuck with the Pennsylvania Dutch.
Do not fuck with the Pennsylvania Dutch.
Uh, Mine is a bit of foreshadowing, uh,
Ooh.
and we see it's the office in Red Rock Cantina, but it's not as fancy as it is now. And we see several people standing there, and Dave's sitting at his desk, And in front of Dave, being held by two men, is Flapjack Houlihan, and Flapjack is looking very guilty. And there's like a big bag spilled out of gold coins, and Dave is like, um, I really wish they hadn't caught you. I really wish they hadn't caught you, Flapjack. Because now they want you dead. But but I need you around. So here's what we're gonna do. Alan and this large man in a this very large man steps forward, and he's got a meat cleaver. And I really hate to do this, Chief Flapjack. Are you right-handed or left-handed? And he says, right-handed, Diamond Dave. Okay, Alan, let's take his left hand. And then you see Alan with a big meat cleaver, and then it just goes to black.
Brutal. I love it. Harrington or Graves, either of you want to use a mask or you want to hold off for narrating it later?
I think I want to hold off
All
after that
right.
scene.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, actually, that's kind of a fun cutoff.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm into it.
me and Harrington will
You'll bring
do
them up later in the
ours.
session. I'm into
Yeah.
it. Absolutely into it. Well, then in that case, using that mask, we'll bump it up to a 7 to 9. So your theory is correct. But there will be an unwelcome complication, or pursuing it would be more difficult, but it's going to be an unwelcome complication. But you do unlock the last question, which is, where is Jimmy hiding? Answering that unlocks two opportunities simultaneously. You can either resolve the threat by helping the Ghost Riders take their revenge, or you can resolve the threat by laying a trap for the Ghost Riders and then destroying them. And I think I know which way y'all are leaning. So on a 7 to 9, just to make sure that we're all communicating results, even though you can't bump it up further, an unwelcome complication to why the Ghost Riders want Jimmy Pike dead. I don't think it is nearly as cut and dry as they took out this fifth ranger who was friends with Jimmy Pike, and then Jimmy Pike got his revenge. I think I'm trying to think of how to phrase the way it's in my head. I actually think it's more interesting because if you think about it, if they killed that fifth ranger, why hasn't that fifth ranger's ghost come around in a similar sense of issue and is hunting down the Ghost Riders? The thing is, that fifth ranger is not actually dead. And I'll leave it at that for now. Someone make a note of that on the sheet. That is the unwelcome complication. There's something more going on with that. But let's begin the day phase. I want to hear first from our hunters about what you're interested in doing today. Let's start with Marshal Harrington. What sort of activities are demanding your attention or are you interested in pursuing today?
Well, I do have a sort of meeting that's being set up by Stackpole that I need to go to. I
Makes
need to
sense.
be very polite about the blue boy.
Yes, indeed. Any other activities that you might consider? Because you get like one or two.
Uh,
Just gonna stick
mm,
with that for now.
just gonna stick with that for now.
Makes
And
sense.
like, yeah.
Diamond Dave, what about you?
I'm going to use my new, as foreshadowed, my new additional move. Have you met my associates? And put the word out that because of all the Red Rock getting shot up, the corset, um, all these weird things going on with Reynolds, he's bringing in some extra muscle in the form
Mm,
of Alan McDowell. And then we're gonna get Diamond Dave out and about and try to find out where this Jimmy Pike is hiding. So we'll get Diamond Dave on the case.
I love it. Yeah. Graves, what about you?
Well, I did walk back to town, so something in El Paso.
Something in El Paso.
Because I feel like that's probably where I'm at. If
Mm-hmm.
anybody wants a vulnerable scene, also chaotic, set it in the chat. Yeah, a vulnerable scene with anybody, I'm down. And also, honestly, probably trying to finish out the Ghost Riders. And if I find out anything else about any of the things I find out, sure. Um, but frankly, this whole thing got me trapped in a fucking mine, and I'm kind of ready to be done with it.
Fair
So.
enough. And what about you, Mother Ruth? You're muted.
Mother Ruth is open for a vulnerable scene if anybody wants to, but if not, Mother Ruth's got herself. She's gonna start with her new morning, morning ritual of getting moisturized and everything, staying in her lane. But then she's gonna investigate Clear Springs.
Hmm.
Trying to wrap up Clear Springs because it's getting kind of wild in there, and so.
Well, yeah, I will ask. Are you still in Clear Springs, or have you come back to El Paso at all?
I like the idea that Mother Calvo Mother Calvo was going to make them like keep her, like have a
Mm-hmm.
room for her to stay
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
But they were probably too freaked out by her, and they said that
Yeah.
she was a conduit. I think even Brother Antonio said it was not for the best idea. The brothers are already scared enough, i.e., him,
Mm-hmm.
after she beat his ass in an alleyway in Clear Springs, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
enough to leave a mark. And so she went back to El Paso. More so, I think she went to outside of El Paso because she said that she was going to be staying the night with what's her name?
Oh, the Shields, Annette.
Yeah, the Shields, Annette
Yeah,
Shield.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Okay, I'm into it. Yeah, that's near the Ghost Riders campsite anyway.
yeah.
You then probably came back and like, the Ghost Riders had returned to their campsite after shooting up the Red Rock in a
Hmm.
confused state before like riding off into the night. So, yeah, you're back in El Paso. Um hell yeah. So, but then you're going to do some Clear Spring stuff. I'm into it. Um
Perfect.
then let's begin the day fades with Mother Ruth, actually. Um, I'm going to say that. So, this morning routine of yours, especially as a guest at Annette Shields' house, Annette is a very accommodating host. Like, she's happy to let you stay there. Although I think even you could notice the kind of disquiet she's feeling, mostly just on account of the fact that she was at the assemblage that was talking about
Mm.
these matters, and like, she's still a little shaken up about the fact that the Ghost Riders shot the place up, and she kind of like had a few bullets flying overhead. So
She
she
threw her
kind
weight
of
behind them too.
she did throw her weight behind them. Yeah. So she's a little shaken, and maybe like has like a little bit like far off in the morning when you're
Hmm.
like up and about. I don't think she's gone like so far as a hostess to um like she's not like serving you hand and foot, but she does like she makes when she makes like a breakfast for herself. She makes it for the both of you. She makes like enough for you to claim she has like a pot of like oats, and probably like a few eggs that she got from like a neighbor's coop.
Hmm.
So like when you're up and getting ready, there are the smells of food that's already been prepared, and whenever you're out and down in the kitchen, or rather down in like her like main like living area where she's seated at the table, you can tell
Yeah.
it's like she's got that kind of like she's like looking out the window, she's a little far off, she's a little shaken, but she's still trying to like be amiable and like project the sense of like, oh, good morning.
I think, and also do either Harrington or Graves,
Mm-hmm.
whichever of you feel the most prescient that you could jump into this situation. Something that might be interesting for you to walk into if y'all do want to do a vulnerable scene, is you would see Mother Ruth probably helping Annette Shields. Um, Not in a let me give you a helping hand kind of way, but in a overly familiar, almost like doting wife kind of
Mm.
way. She is never excessively like touching Annette or anything like that, but is like moving behind her in close quarters of the kitchen, saying, "Pardon me, excuse me," like doing the things of like, "You work so hard, Annette, let me do some things for you," that kind of thing. If that is like if like I might see Graves walking by, probably wandering by, I don't know, or if Graves, if you were investigating nearby.
I'm into that. I'm into that. If that's all
That's
right
so
with
funny.
chaotic to take to have Graves take this vulnerable scene, hell yeah.
That's really
Then
funny.
outside, Graves, what brings you a wandering this morning?
I don't think he ever stopped from the night. I think that
Oh,
he
you just walked all the way back.
just
Just been
walked
wandering.
all the way back. No horse. Um, and I think that that's what he's been doing all fucking night. Because he's a weirdo. And also because he's like, okay, I generally know where these people are hanging out, where these ghostwriters are hanging out, and I'm sick of it. Okay, let's just get this done. This has been way more trouble than it's worth. I'm gonna send these people back to hell or wherever they go.
I dig it. You're on that sort of course towards their camp, which is, out behind Annette's homestead. Who notices who first? Does Graves see Mother Ruth inside the homestead through the window first? Or does Ruth see Graves just walking through the outskirt desert towards the Ghostwriters camp?
I think Mother Graves would see
Mother
Mother
Graves?
Graves
Oh, are we
and see
married
what she's
now?
thinking of. Yeah, we are. Hold on tight, Spider
Ooh.
Monkey. So Jesus Christ.
I hate it.
So with that, like Mother Calvo would go, "Is that old fool tutting around your property again? Ah, pardon me, Annette. I'll go talk to him." And we'll walk out into the front porch, wipe her hands on an apron, like she is like living at this property. You can probably even see off in the like off on the opposite side where like the saw like the ghost. There are some of Mother Calvo's people that are like camped out off of her property because they think that it's cursed and everything, but they're
Yeah.
concerned for Mother Calvo and they're like, "What are
They're
you
like, oh
doing?"
God. Like, why are you
Um,
here?
but she like steps out and goes, "Bartholomew Graves.
Mother Ruth Calvo.
You look like death warmed over. Can we get some food in you?"
Sure. What are you do you and he looks over kind of at your people in the distance and you have you
Stop
just
worrying yourself about all these details and such. Come on, and like goes inside, making sure not to like touch him, but like tut tut, come on, work your way up here. Do you need something? And slips over a flask to him.
the flask is very much accepted because he forgot he was in a living flesh body for quite a few hours.
Bit of
And
a hair
after
to
yeah,
dog.
after he absolutely like drains half of it and hands it back to you. Um no, but do you live here now? Are you since when are you
Merely helping out. Walks on in. Annette, go ahead. We'll be taking I have to speak to my associate here from the Vigilance Committee. I'll go ahead and make him a bowl and everything like that. Do you need anything, Annette?
She is looking out into the distance and does not respond to you, but then in that uncomfortable silence that follows, she like blinks and turns her head to look at the both of you, seems like a little bit surprised to see Graves is sitting there, like she didn't register that he had entered. And she like shakes off the cobwebs in her hair and goes, oh, no, I'm quite all right, thank you though, Mother Calvo.
All
Morning,
right.
Mr. Graves.
Do what you need to do. Mr. Graves and I have some business to attend to upstairs. We got to talk about what happened the night previous.
Of course, yeah, let me know if you need anything, I'll be here.
You're such a doll. And she's gonna give Annette Graves, you would notice, an arm squeeze, like an upper arm squeeze. And we'll move past and say, "Come right this way."
Oh, he assumes you got a girlfriend and just goes up with you. Like Annette gets like a little hat tip, like kind of almost a smile, like a knowing one, like he just kind of assumes, and then goes up with you.
don't forget your food, darling.
Oh, right, right. And he takes the food and kind of like does like a vague like thank like gesture because he's very what happened last night that
all
I should know
manners
about?
all manners of horrific details. I had quite a run in at Clear Springs, and apparently some of the Ghost Riders took umbrage to the poor people having an assemblage from the marshal. We should really be talking to the marshal soon at some point, but this is
Yeah.
much more important. Opens up the door and like kind of pushes Graves on the back inside, and then closes the door and locks it and goes, "What's wrong with your eyes?
What are you talking about?
Your eyes, they're glowing, dear."
Oh, shit. Don't worry about it. It's fine. We had an interesting night. So, it's fine.
It's fine, are you
I'm
sure?
I'm very fine and I'm very sure I yes. He like visibly stops to think about it for a second. He's still a little dusty, a little covered in like he looks like a fucking chimney sweep. Um
I
you said that you had things happen last night. Two things in different towns. I would like you to tell me about that.
The dead is rising in Clear Springs, as we all
Oh,
know,
of
but
course.
they're acting up. They're pushing back. They're behaving strangely, and it's affected the poor brothers at the mission. I I'm going to have to take a hand and deal with things more hands-on, but if I'm going to, I'm going to have to be prepared. So this is why the next part is important. You remember our little rendezvous as Mother Calvo starts putting on her gloves that she wears. I know how much you don't like to be touched, but it's been a while since I've been touched, Mr. Graves, and I desperately need to be touched, Mr. Graves.
And he, with a gloved hand, I cannot stress this enough, Alex. The hand is gloved. Strokes her cheek down to her jawbone. I can make accommodations.
Good, get these off then. And starts like moving at the gun belt with the belt buckle and everything.
Incredible. I love it. I love it. Let's
Vigilance Committee business.
Vigilance Committee
Vigilance
business, of
Committee
course.
business.
Nothing like fucking in a house you're guesting in. Um,
We're quiet. It's
That's
fine.
that's 20-year-old West shit.
yeah, yeah,
Yes,
That's
sure,
like
yeah.
mood.
Let's cut over to one of the busiest people in El Paso in a much different way, though. Diamond Dave, you were putting out a word to an old associate of yours. Before we make the roll, because of your new move, have you met my associate? I'm curious. We know who you're going to be calling on. How do you put out word that you need help from an old connection?
I think I would ask Marcus. I'm he's getting ready to go out, and as he's getting ready to, as Dave Diamond Dave's getting ready to go out, he pulls Marcus over and says, "Marcus, can you track down Alan McDowell because
He
I think we need him."
Marcus gets this kind of like slightly affronted look, as if to say like, "How dare you interrupt me as I'm ready to leave?" He's already like, in like very well manicured, and like, he got his like outfit for like an afternoon time spent with a gentleman caller, and he like blinks once like the name processes, and he says, "Is he still in town, boss?"
I don't know. I haven't seen him in a while. He could be. If he's not here, he's probably over in Pecos Valley.
Well, I'd be more than happy to. Just as long as you are understanding that Mr. Sanchez might be a little put off by any delay to our appointed time. He might have some financial qualms about my company being delayed. As long as you're
Well,
all right with that.
just let him know that you and the rest of us here at the Red Rock Cantina are in danger, and we need as much protection as we can get. And I think Alan's the guy to do it.
He just like kind of gives like a little huff but nods, and sees himself out. So because you have this move here. Have you met my associate? When you put out a word that you need help from an old connection, you've selected one, and you're going to roll with presence. Before we make the roll here, um, your staff doesn't give you any bonuses to rolls, I believe, if they're just NPCs. Okay. And I'm going to say that because you're on your best behavior, I'm going to give you disadvantage at this because of that flashback we saw and the violent connections we know of it. The fact that you're calling on your literal hand cutter, this kind of violent guy, might draw some eyes or ire.
I see your disadvantage, and I
Mm-hmm.
raise it a charred lace of Hannah's dress. Who Alan? He just adored her,
Oh, you dropped in using that news. All right, I'm into it. Then you can roll flat with presence.
and that gives me a 5 and a 10.
On a 10 plus, Alan shows up right away and does as you wish. I think right away looks to like very much to be like within the hour, if not slightly sooner. Like it like almost no time has passed between um uh Marcus stepping out into El Paso, and are you in your office or are you like in the establishment?
No, I'm already. When Alan gets there, I won't be. So Alan will
Mm-hmm.
be when I get back.
Mm-hmm.
I'll Alan will be waiting for me. But so I'm looking for Jimmy Pike,
Oh, so
and
you're gonna spend some time looking around before he shows up.
there's one person who if somebody's being pursued by a pack of ghosts,
Mm-hmm.
the one person who can help with his patented ghost begone is Dr. Clarkson. So that's who I'm going
Mm.
to go.
Yeah, I love it. Let's talk about Dr. Clarkson because we alluded to him a little bit last session because he showed up a little bit in the night phase just to check on Andrew. Um, and he's been a member of the Vigilance Committee since you resolved his threat. Where do we see him set up? Does he still operate out of his like that warehouse where he stored the wagon and that he had this like hidden laboratory in there?
That's what I was thinking. We didn't shut him down, did we?
I don't think so. I don't think it was ever
Yeah,
established.
yeah. Then
Like,
he's still probably doing business. Although I
does
wouldn't
he?
think it'd be as good as it was.
I don't think and I don't believe he's peddling Ghost Begone. Like, he's not selling that in the streets anymore. But he is like using like knowledge. Like, he's working on something. I think is he's using his stuff, but has not like yet developed something new. So you show up, and if I'm as long as I'm not getting it confused with another game of El Paso. I believe there was he had an associate who you found dead in here. Like it was yeah, okay, so that his chemist associate is no longer alive. So I think you kind of when you like go to the warehouse and access this secret back room that he uses his like chemical lab, you just hear a lot of like thunks and clanks, and you find um you find Dr. Clarkson, jacket off, hat off. He just kind of like has his suspenders and like white undershirt, sleeves, like rolled up past the elbow. He's unbuttoned a couple of the top buttons there. He's looking like a little haggard as he's got like hammer in one hand, and is like fiddling around with just like this, like this vat and like other just bits of equipment in here. And he looks absolutely like just like confounded and frustrated. But when he sees you arrive, the mask goes on of the proprietor, and he goes, "Why, if it isn't Mr. McMahan, what do I owe the?" Oh, that's right. You are, of course, a member of the Vigilance Committee now yourself, aren't you? I realize we have not yet properly done business as, I guess, co-workers, you could call it. What brings you here today, Mr. McMahan?
Are you building the town clock?
It certainly looks like it, doesn't it? No, I'm trying to make up for the lack of assistant that I previously had before losing her to my own foibles.
I kind of drifted off there when you were talking. Do you need a woman? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm quite all right, and even if I did, I would not go to your establishment. No offense intended.
Hey, look, this this is a business call. So
Hmm.
we're looking for, as you know, Jimmy Pike. And I started thinking, who needs Ghost Begone more than anyone else. And so I thought maybe you might have seen him scrounging around for a bottle of it because he's being chased by some pretty dangerous ghost.
Right. Uh,
He's
he,
a he's a he's a he's a former ranger. He's not probably going by the name Jimmy Pike, but he's
I know the contours of the matter, Mr. McMahan. Andrew was telling me a thing or two about it. I know at least enough to follow you along in conversation. This matter is, well, compared to my dalliances peddling Ghost Beyond to the people of El Paso, is relatively recent compared to since I shut down my operation. So I'm not entirely certain if this Jimmy Pike was indeed in hiding, or at least seeking my remedies when I was selling them. But I'm happy to go through the records of sale. He says with all like the official like bravado of like of like a respected merchant. And when he says like ledgers of sale, he literally just goes to like a lockbox, and is just like flipping through like cash and currencies. And he's like he has his like all of the money he made from doing Ghost Beyond, he hasn't been doing more business. He hasn't made more money, but literally he's like organized it by like transact by person. Like it's like individual. It's not like a bundle of money. It's like this person paid this amount, and it's almost like he has his little OCD collection of like it all looks like just like little folded bundles of money, but as he like examines them and like reflects on them, it's almost like he remembers each person that handed him that bundle. So there's no ledger of sale, and he's kind of like rifling through that. And I'm reminding myself of something real fast because you got him as a member of the Vigilance Committee. He does not offer other clues, but he does give advantage when you do like quieting rituals to deal with ghosts. And after like a minute of just like flipping through things, you can tell he's a little haggard. He just shakes his head and goes, "Well, Mr. McMahan, frankly speaking, I was not exactly the most keen with names, more the money that they were offering me. So I'm having a tough time bringing it fresh to memory. I could certainly use a hand if you'd like to help me sort through all these various transactions. We might be able to." And I don't know, I have a few ledgers and notes in my wagon. Now that we're, of course, working together, I'm not so private as to keep them away from prying eyes. If you'd like to leaf through my previous notations, we could maybe find some things together.
As long as we're off the record, and I feel like we are. I feel like we're establishing that. I just want you to know that in case you haven't already figured it out, I also run a pretty tight North American smuggling ring right here out of El Paso. So if you need something brought in or brought out, I could give you some kind of like collegial like discount.
He is
And
like,
he's saying this as he's like looking
yeah.
at boxes and
You see that like he gets like this look for a moment of like, oh shit, really? And then like
oh yeah.
we see him like file it away for like later reference.
Also I've got this fake cult that I'm working on out in the desert. It's got a lot of potential.
I love this scene so much. I think the setup we've done here is as long as you're helping him like rifle through things to track down some information, you can do the information move with reason.
It's reason.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Come on. I'm going to use some different dice because I already got a big
Oh
number.
yeah.
It doesn't matter. I got 7 and an 8. That won't get me a mastermind clue. Which is what I was hoping for.
You had an 8 total. Alas,
Yeah,
alack.
I can't up it to mastermind. I was hoping this for Dave to get out and use his
unless
collective
I hand it out as a complication. We'll see. I'm gonna make a note here though that Dave, you rolled an 8. And we'll come back to the scene as you're rifling through things. Let's go check in with Marshal Harrington. You have an appointment to keep.
Yes, I do.
You're going to be visiting Alma
Hmm.
Stackpole,
Yeah.
as Wellington laid out. I love it. So this is my first time running the Blue Boys, so I'm just making sure I am all on board. Let's talk about Alma Stackpole's home. Um, it's there are these, like, I think we cut to, like, you're already like inside, like you're inside
Hmm.
and you're like waiting, like you're seated and waiting for Stackpole to meet with you. There are these enormous flower arrangements housed in
Hmm.
towering vases. Various servants have just been darting to and fro, some checking on you, others completely ignoring you, and all the wood in here is just like glimmering, freshly polished. Let's paint the scene. Looking around, how do you know Alma Stackpole is the richest woman in El Paso?
I want to use one that Paul loves waffles used in my game, and it makes things a little difficult with Wellington, but I want to do it anyways because it was so good. All her staff, even Wellington, all her staff are identical twins. She only hires identical twins.
One good way to know that she's super rich is the fact that each of us would probably know for a fact. Graves for gambling, the Marshal for just being a marshal in general, Diamond Dave for being a business owner, and Mother Calvo for being a church, organizer, a head of a religious organizer that also like works off of like tithes and offerings. Um, Much like every rich person, she does not spend her money. She hoards it. And so, if there's ever gambling, she always does minimum bets. If she ever goes into a place of business, she never tips. She's never tipped Diamond Dave once if she's ever gone into Red Rock Casino. And she absolutely does not give tithes and offerings to the church whatsoever. That kind of thing. She's a penny pincher.
She is, but there are like imported goods, sort of just you can see Marshall Harrington just around her house, like imported china tea sets, like it's fine, like almost see-through bone china, imported like fruits you can't get here.
Mhm.
Like no one's touched them recently. Like no one's like actively eating them, but there's stuff that you may have never even seen in this state. And it's just out. Like it's casual because she doesn't see it as a big deal.
I think the wallpaper is an unusual design, very like intricate patterns mixing with blues and purples. It's a little bit dizzying to look at if Harrington is going to be honest about it, but like just the amount of it, like covering each room in this house, like it's way too much. Most people just like have like painted walls, maybe just plain wood, not wallpaper.
So you're seated, and you're in like, waiting. You can hear like the ticking of the clock as the hustle and bustle surround you. And stepping into the entryway, kind of like in transit between places, you do see Wellington, the butler. He is a very tall and stout man for his advanced age. His eyebrows can only be described as strategically arched. And as he steps in, he like checks on his pocket watch, like nods to himself, like tucks it back away, and hands clasped behind his back, like, just steps a little closer to you and says, Marshal Harrington, very good to see you. Thank you for coming. You are, of course, here as to what we talked about.
Yes.
Very good. Yes, very good. Ms. Stackpole is presently preoccupied, but she should be ready to take company with you in the parlor very soon. I trust that you will be maintaining the matters we previously discussed.
Yes,
Hmm.
of course. I'm very curious about how everything is
Hmm.
going on here.
Indeed, indeed. Mr. Sorry, forgive me, Marshall.
Mhm.
Me. You are from England, are you not?
Yes.
Hmm. Like our cook. Yes. I am curious to know if you are of the breed that is maintainably polite amongst the eccentric wealthy. I just want to ensure that there will be no friction. Mrs. Stackpole comes from the Eastern Seaboard, New York, much like myself in my time serving her. And I just want to ensure that there will be no cultural clashings, anything of that nature.
Mm, I've dealt with eccentrically wealthy people before, and I know how to hold my tongue in such manners.
Yes, we are much the same. Putting up with the eccentricities of the rich is simply part of my job.
Mm.
Let me be clear. Mrs. Stackpole isn't the first woman of means to have sensual ideas about how to spend her time or money. Nevertheless, this Blue Boy business is getting a little out of hand, so tact. But timeliness and tact. You understand that?
Yes.
Very good. Please, right this way. And he leads you down the hallway into the parlor, which has just reproduction Rococo era furniture placed around. There's this like grand fireplace, presently unlit. It's not particularly hot or cold even. And even though it's like, like the late morning, Wellington still crosses the room to like a crystal decanter of like brandy in various drinking glasses and like gestures as if to offer you a couple fingers of brandy this morning.
Mhm. I will accept.
Mm-hmm. And after a minute or two in which he's just standing off to the side of the room, you hear footsteps distinctly set apart from the various servants that are busying themselves around the house. And the wealthy widow, Alma Stackpole herself, does show up. She is dressed in a very simple black dress, her jewelry, very tasteful. She is an overall soft and round woman. Um, and her eyes are misty. In fact, anytime you've seen this woman around town or otherwise, she's always had slightly misty eyes. This is the richest woman in El Paso. And the widow of the man who founded the mining company, Melvin Stackpole. Let's actually paint the scene about the parlor again, real quick here.
Mhm.
What reminders of Alma's late husband, Melvin, haunt this room?
Well, obviously it's his portrait. Like he is with his wife, and he in particular looks like he's looking down at anyone in this room.
I'm going to say in a corner is one of those wooden um, coat trees. And even though he's been dead for a while, we see his frock coat and maybe a top hat are still there. Like he could come downstairs and put them on and go out.
There's an ashtray stand. It's very nicely made. It's a brass arm or a brass stand with like a granite bowl in it, and you can see that there is a cigar that is to any person that is like familiar around a humidor, you can tell that the cigar is only smoked occasionally every single night. And it might be that she's holding on to his memory. That's his cigars. And so she
Mm.
takes a couple of puffs or like lights it every night to kind of like keep the parlor smelling like that.
Buy this ashtray on like a little side table, a book with a bookmark in it about three-fourths of the way through, and these little, very well made silver spectacles on top. There is dust on it. It will never be finished.
I like it. So Marshal Harrington, as Alma enters the room, she kind of like pauses in the doorway, looks at Wellington, looks at you. Uh, it lasts maybe about half a second before she begins crossing the room towards you and extends her hand in greeting as she says, "Marshal Harrington, I believe this might be the first time you and I are formally acquainted one to one."
Mm. Yes, Miss Stackwell. Yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, I think we are both very busy individuals, and I'd rather not to intrude too much about your time, but I'm just very curious about you having a guest here, let's say.
Yes, you are speaking of the blue boy.
Mm-hmm.
She like lets this moment of silence hang in the air before she crosses the room over towards that ashtray. And even though she doesn't like pick up the cigar or lights it, she kind of like stands there, just like, facing the window or the wall and just kind of like breathes deeply in the smell of lingering cigar smoke and goes to like stand by the fireplace mantle, touches a hand to it and like looks up at the portrait of Melvin leering down. And when she turns to you, still misty eyed, and she says, "No, I found myself totally unmoored after Melvin was killed. I needed to pour my energy into something. That's what my mother did when my father died, dedicated herself to charitable works. I dedicated myself to the Blue Boy, though the painting I keep in my chambers is just a reproduction. It still captures that innocence, that aristocratic beauty." She gestures to like the portrait of her late husband and says, um, "Melvin tried to capture the latter himself on many occasions, but it's the difference between effort and nature. Does that make sense? To see that
Oh,
it's like being transported to another world where everyone is delicate and soft spoken and at one with Mother Nature. And now he is here. To tell you the truth, Marshal Harrington, I've always hated that dreadful red moon whenever it comes, but I cannot deny it has given me a wonderful gift."
yes, indeed. Normally, as you do know, the Vigilance Committee does handle the affairs of ghosts. There's quite a lot of why they remain here in this life during the Red Moon is that they have unfinished business.
Mm. There's another long pause as she just kind of like lets the silence hang in the air and doesn't look quite at you, still misty eyed. And there is a momentary expression that crosses her face. It might be suspicion, it might be doubt. Who's to say? It's very fast, but she does step away from the fireplace and, close the gap politely between you and her, as she folds her hands in front of the other standing there. And she says, "Marshal, if you do not mind me speaking freely,
Mm.
I understand that the Vigilance Committee has a particular way of dealing with ghosts by and large. And just from the look in her eyes, you know that she's alluding towards the fact that, like, the Vigilance Committee deals with ghosts. You being here does not make her comfortable. I think, in keeping with
Mm.
the established
Yeah,
notion, if you are indeed still wanting to
yeah.
pursue this as like I'm being supportive, we're going to trigger the day move here,
Mm-hmm.
where to effectively convince her and maintain the sense of you're actually enthusiastic as she is. What are you afraid of happening here should this fail?
She'll mistake Andrew Harrington's genuine curiosity about like what's going on with the blue boy, like what sort of ghost this is, as like the sort of like seeking the blue boy's destruction rather than just trying
Mm.
to figure out like what's going on.
Mm-hmm. I dig it. You can roll with presence.
Ooh. I think I'll just roll flat because my presence is really good. Not bad, not bad. That is a 10.
10. Um, then I will say, she was about to open her mouth to continue the train of thought, but you're absolutely able to cut in there and
Mhm.
steer the scene and
Yeah.
tell us how this plays out.
Yes. Uh, I do know that you have heard of what we've done recently, and that's just due to the nature of specific hauntings. Some ghosts do die pretty violent deaths. However, others, when they die peacefully, they are oftentimes peaceful ghosts, maybe a little melancholic, and we do allow them to remain for the wounded knight. So this, I'm just trying to make sure that you are all right and that your compatriot is also all right.
How does she respond to that?
I think she gets a little bit prickly at like the bring up like the violent deaths, but then like it's she settles back down again when I do mention that I want to make sure that she's all right, but also her compatriot is also all right.
I like it. And I think before we shift the spotlight for a moment, she is going to warm up to you and sit with you in the parlor and will happily discuss matters with you. And she'll dismiss Wellington. So we're gonna cut away. When we come back, you'll have gotten the clue that will be unlocked from speaking with Miss Stackpole. And let's check back in post coitally or post, whatever the situation there is. Let's check on the conditions that Ruth and Graves would have just cleared. Mother Ruth, what are you clearing?
I believe that Mother Ruth, the most effective one here, I could probably say Antonio's guiding hand doesn't seem very pertinent, but I would say that we could certainly clear marked by clear springs. Almost like this is like a full on just like let me separate myself from everything
Mm-hmm.
that happened yesterday with Bartholomew Graves over here.
I
So
dig
yeah.
it. Yeah. And what about you, Graves? What are you clearing?
I think the same kind of thing. I really don't want to get rid of the omen of the Brachylocus, so I'm going to get rid of the breaker of my own rules, just because I really love that sort of
Mm-hmm.
overlying, even though we have sort of separated ourselves from the traumatic events of the night prior, the day prior. That's, I think, maybe a bigger thing. So,
Perfect. Yeah, it's almost like you've got this religious figure here telling you it's okay.
exactly. We are fine. The rules of nature have not been broken, mostly, probably. It's fine. We had a good time. That's all that
Yeah,
actually matters.
that's all that matters.
I love it. And Mother Ruth, this was your vice. So which option are you going to choose? A question or a clue?
As much as I would love to have the dear Graves ask about Mother Ruth and her past and everything like that, I think that we need to collect some clues here. And so I think there's no better place to collect clues because we are in Annette's house than collect a clue for the Ghost Riders of Sawtooth Ridge.
All right, I'll let you deliberate on what
Mm.
that clue is. Let's take a 5 minute break.
Hell yeah.
All right, so I want to go around here and we have some lingering clues to dole out, and then also a couple of narrative things to hit. So, starting with the vulnerable scene between Graves and Ruth, Wes, did you think about the clue you wanted to stumble upon during that whole matter?
Yeah, much as you do when you're having sex in somebody's house that you're a guest in, you also afterwards, for aftercare and pillow talk, you rustle through their things. Absolutely, everybody does this, right? So, essentially, like after all of their frolickings, Mother Calvo and Bartholomew Graves stumbled upon Annette's diary, Annette Shield's diary, notating on different days where she dropped flowers for the ghosts at specific locations. This is not to suggest where Jimmy Pike is, but
Hmm.
this is to suggest where Jimmy Pike is not. These are
Oh,
places
fun.
that the Ghost Riders would frequent, and so he would not be in these places. And so it helps narrow down.
That's a cute clue.
Ouch.
I like it. Add it to the list. And before I move on to reveal clues and other details with the others, as a little narrative beat to hit, um, when the two of you wrap up and then leave the Shields homestead at some point, as you are crossing kind of like the outskirts of town, something on the western outskirts catches your eye. Ruth Calvo, and I mean by extension Graves, because you're there. It looks to be that there's like a group of El Paso folk. They got like a couple of like horses, not like a large wagon, not like they're moving, but like that they are like, ferrying some like basic supplies. And it's they're heading uh they're heading out of town, but you have this distinct impression that they are leaving to go to Clear Springs. Um, Now, because you are a woman of faith, Mother Calvo, I want to ask you. It's like, how can you tell? I mean, even from this distance, right? Like, it's just like you see that, and it's like you kind of like already know. Like how do you like know that these folks have been like tempted with rumors of returned deceased loved ones?
Oh, I'm gonna take a little bit from the leftovers
Oh yeah, I
here.
was just thinking about that show.
Um, which is a perfect television show.
Yeah.
Everybody should watch it.
Mhm.
I think it is one of the best television series of all time. But that's funny. We can talk about that later. But uh, we see some of these people with their loved ones, like the last clothes they were wearing and everything, almost as like a preparation to drape them when they come back almost. It's like a here's something to welcome you by, to remember what it is. And it's not just clothing, but it's like toys if it's small children, or if it's like adults, it's like a favored pipe or something.
I love it. So you
Yeah.
see that some people seem to be drawn towards the town. Meanwhile, Diamond Dave, you and Dr. Clarkson have been rooting around amidst various like journals and things like that. And between your work, you flag an interesting detail that like is noted down, and then Clarkson can like expound on it further because he writes in like shorthand. So you can ask him to clarify what something means, and he'll think about it, and he'll be like, "Oh yeah, I think it was blah 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 blah." And here's your clue: he does remember an interesting little peripheral detail from like various customers during his time selling Ghost Begone, is that a lot of people had like mentioned and talked about that, like, oh, they needed protection, blah 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 blah, and they've been hearing, all the Red Moon business is very off-putting, and they've been hearing strange noises from their attic. And the thing is, though, since working in the Vigilance Committee now, as far as he is aware, and with knowledge of the group, the Vigilance Committee has not dealt with any ghosts in any attics recently. And it seemed like it was never occurring like at the same time between multiple customers. He just remembers over like the weeks he was around here, it was like, oh yeah, like people occasionally would report that here and there. And now he's wondering, what's that about? So that's your clue, is that several of Clarkson's customers had reported strange noises coming from their attic. Now, here's your complication if you don't choose to mark a mask, because I am wanting to be a little selfish, is this is going to lead into getting a mastermind clue, just so you know. But a gentleman is about to show up. Specifically, there is a knock, not at at the door to the laboratory, because the laboratory is kind of like secreted at the back of the warehouse. It's like a knock on the warehouse door proper. In here, this voice being like, "Hello, anyone in there? Hello, anyone at all? Hello." And like muttering like, "Damnable, where did I put those keys?" And you have probably had dealings with this gentleman, and after a moment of like fiddling around and being a little put upon, entering the warehouse is a small man with shifty eyes. Yes, it's Bird, Byrd, ginger haired with his fox like appearance and his gray suit and thin red tie. The guy who maintains the railroad outpost for the Reynolds here in town comes like and goes, and like walks in, and Clarkson has probably like stepped out to like see what all the ruckus is about, and Bird just points to the door and says, "I've been knocking for 5 minutes. I believe I was very clear, Mr. forgive me, Dr. Clarkson, that there was supposed to be a sense of co-ownership. We allow you to continue using the space, and in return, you don't lock the doors of the warehouse we are using for supplies. Good morning, Mr. McMahan." Kind of like puts his shifty eyes on you. So I wanted to check. Do you intend to mark a mask about any of this or no?
No, I want that. I want that clue.
Yeah, fair enough. And yeah, like Dr. Clarkson, basically the scene gets a little interrupted. Dr. Clarkson is just like, he apologizes and like has to deal with this and converse with him, and you're mostly just tending to your own little thing here in the background, like looking through the belongings, the notes, and just kind of topping off your knowledge. But you do keep like an ear out to what's happening between Bird and Dr. Clarkson. Dr. Clarkson doesn't own the warehouse, but as was mentioned, Bird uses this warehouse for railroad supplies, and there's seeming like an arrangement that they share the space with Dr. Clarkson. So they're just having some kind of like just back and forth idle chatter. But from what you can hear, like Bird is uncharacteristically like excited. He's normally a very like shifty kind of guy, very much like on the lookout for business opportunities or otherwise. And today he's like almost like schoolboyish in like how like as to how he talks. And what you do catch from their conversation is he's like mentioning how there's real progress about the future railroad, like Miss Reynolds has been hard at work, and there are very exciting things to come. He's very excited in an almost sinister way, and that is the mastermind clue. The 10th mastermind clue is Bird excitedly talking about fast coming developments on the railroad, which brings us into the new layer. So we'll talk about what that portends later. But that eats up a lot of time before you eventually, wrap up your business here, and you kind of excuse yourself, and Dr. Clarkson goes about his own business. And when you return to the Red Rock Cantina, you find already waiting for you there, Alan McDowell, who, as per your move here, is described, and your flashback is described as just a big, got this large handlebar mustache, balding up top, and wears this tan canvas trench coat. Your muscle. And when you enter, he stands and crosses the room to you, like is he taller than you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's towers over you, looks down at you, and nods and just says, "Actually, let me ask you this: what do we think Alan is? Is he Scottish? Is he Southern? What do we imagine his ethnicity vibe to be?"
He's probably Southern, because he's probably from around the Mississippi River, where Dave got his start. So he's probably Southern.
He nods and he just says, Boss?
Sorry to tell you about Hannah. There's weird there's weird stuff going on with this Wounded Knight this year, and
No, I heard.
it's bad.
Damn shame that. Hannah was a good girl.
It's bad. It's going to get worse, Alan. So
So
we
how?
need to get the old team back.
All right, well,
There's so much money's going to be made here. So much money.
He shrugs as if he doesn't particularly care. And he just says, "Hey,
you know me, boss. You tell me what needs to get done, and it'll get done. So where do we start?
Yeah, let's go talk about that.
Hmm.
and Marshal Harrington, in your conversations with Mrs. Stackpole, the wealthy widow, let me ask you a question real quick. What is the most frustrating thing about this conversation for you? Or tiresome, or however you want to put it?
I would say the fact that she will not actually specified things that she has talked to the blue boy about.
Mm.
Like she's like, oh no, I cannot reveal like all of this. It's just too scandalous.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that makes it all the more noteworthy when she does let something slip in the conversation that is
Scandalous.
well, not necessarily scandalous, but definitely interesting. And so this is your clue: is as it comes up in conversation, it's not necessarily like outright said in as many words, but like the way she talks about it and like the way she talks around it, it's almost like straight up evidence that she kind of like paints a picture of like that she lost a child many years ago. So that is your clue. And from your like, the time is passing from your just, your conversations, eventually the rumble of her stomach punctuates one of her ongoing tangents. She like rings a little handbell, and like a moment later, this square framed, jowly woman in like, like a cook's apron and smock like comes like walking in, and just you're immediately hit with the thick stench of onion and tobacco, um and and uh and Alma says, Irma, would you be a dear and fetch us some finger sandwiches, please? And the cook, Irma, she was called, just kind of like nods curtly, looks at you, and then just turns and walks out of the room. Comes back later, has some sandwiches, and seems to be kind of uncomfortable with the peripherally about the discussion of the blue boy and ghosts and stuff like that. But she's a good servant and doesn't make herself particularly well known. Um, Let me ask you this, Chaotic. Do you excuse yourself eventually, or do you sit here until Alma is like, well, I have to get back to business, and then has to conclude the meeting?
I think I do excuse myself eventually
Hmm.
because like it's a little bit more in these wealthy places, it's more appropriate for your guests to excuse themselves than to have a kick out a guest for
Sure. Yeah.
overstaying their welcome.
Hmm. I'm into it. What does that look like?
I think as like the sort of conversation is winding down, I thank Mrs. Stackpole for her time and her considerations with all of this, as well as like just general cooperation with the Vigilance Committee business, as well as just for being a pleasant conversationalist, even though it really did frustrate me truly.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I say my goodbyes and I leave.
Yeah, before you leave, she does extend the invitation that you're welcome to come by again next time. She'd be happy to show you her the blue boy room.
Mhm.
She is very excited to hear that the marshal has such an open mind about this pillar of youth and aristocracy. And you excuse yourself.
Mhm.
What are our hunters interested in doing? Do we have any lingering day phase matters that we want to resolve, or are there matters that are segueing into the night? Daniel, I know you mentioned wanting to possibly get another clue.
I think that's enough. I think that's enough. We've
All
got
right.
four, so it'll be a flat roll. But I think that's enough.
Ruth Graves, anything you also wanted to maybe tackle during the day phase?
Um, God, yeah, I think it would stick me in Clear Springs for the night, wouldn't it? If I went to Clear Springs.
Certainly, it would stick
Yeah,
us
just because it's
because
so
I
far
would
out
go
of
with.
town. Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
so
Yeah,
far
because
out of
You're
town.
welcome. You're welcome to go to Clear Springs. I mean, I'm not trying to stop
Um,
you.
mm, God, that's an all day thing tomorrow. That's an all day thing. That's like this is West. This is also Ruth Calvo just being like this. That's just like my entire day.
I like the idea of this conversation actually happening, where she's just like, "Oh my God, this is my entire day." Like Grace's like, "Well, we could get it done though. Like we could get it done and then never have to go back."
And I will also inform it from a player decision.
hmm
Keep in mind, something's coming up in this upcoming Dawn phase, not that we have 10 mastermind clues.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From a meta standpoint, would it be better for us to be in El Paso for
It
that?
would certainly be better for us to be in El Paso for
Yeah, I'm
that.
not saying well, you can get to El Paso, certainly. I'm just saying that it's going to be I mean, it's going to be an all day affair in El Paso for sure. So, I mean, if you're out of, I mean, like, I'm going to assume that if you were in Clear Springs during the night phase and then the following day phase, you because again, it doesn't have to necessarily be sequential like the day after the other. You can be back in El Paso during that day phase. It's just entirely up to
Okay.
you. Yeah, it depends on the fiction, right? So it's not like
Hmm.
it's going to be like you're going to be stuck in Clear Springs and you're going to be there tomorrow as well, because I might not say the day
Mhm.
phase tomorrow is tomorrow. It might be like a couple days later.
Also, I do have a move thing, a mechanical thing,
Oh yeah,
because
sure.
I do have the Sawbones move. I know you don't want to get rid of Omen of the Virkalos,
You,
but would that be considered a physical condition?
No, it is not.
Okay, so you wouldn't get rid of that. Okay, never mind. Maybe
I was
Death
like,
Touch
unless
then.
you get rid of
No.
get rid of Death Touch, that
Yeah,
would be for your own
maybe these
selfish
old
reasons.
Sawbones is what you needed.
Ooh,
Ooh.
Uh,
no.
okay, perfect. I did not sermonize to you. Did you feel sermonized at any point during that any of that vulnerable
No,
scene?
I don't think I unless Ruth got really interesting after the fade
Sure.
to black.
Oh God.
Unless she decided to get that involved, which is
No. Okay.
her
No.
priority, her
So we won't do the
prerogative.
second part of Sawbones. So you will not get the word of God added to your personal quarters.
Mm.
I apologize.
It's okay.
Um,
Next
I actually
time.
do want to ask you, Mother Calvo, because if you're intending to go, so are you, well, let's establish this. Are you intending to go to Clear Springs or are you hanging here in El Paso?
I'm hanging here in El
Okay.
Paso.
So you're going to hang here in El Paso. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
I'll ask a follow up here in a moment. The second question I have about that though is since I narrated you saw that group leaving El Paso and you have a feeling they're going to Clear Springs, is it a thing you are just letting happen or are you going to try and stop them?
That was going to be my move. My final day move thing is
Good.
essentially going to go. Yeah, I'm gonna go flip some tables. I'm gonna pull a move from my main man JC's playbook, and yeah, and just gonna like fashion my way just broadly and say, "One moment, dear," and just start stalking over towards the group to stand in front of them.
Mm. Yeah, it's a procession of locals. Do you recognize any of them from like church?
Ooh, as I'm looking over right now, yeah, uh, I look past through some of them and I go, Clarence,
Uh
Clarence O'Toole.
that's a character that exists and is dead, I believe.
Oh, is he dead?
Clarence O'Toole
No,
died. Didn't he
I
die?
didn't kill him.
No. Oh, did
He's
you
in.
not?
Oh,
Did
did he?
I? Or did he get killed? He was in jail.
Okay,
Wait, did
okay.
I
I?
can't remember.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
He
I'm pretty
got
sure he
jailed.
got arrested. Yeah, he was imprisoned.
Yeah, he
He
got
is
transferred into town, out of town
yeah,
like a
Out
he's
couple
of
weeks
he
town.
ago.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, he's no he's in a
Okay.
federal jail.
okay. He's in the federal jail now. Okay, never mind then. Hmm,
You can just
hmm.
invent a random character. It's totally
No,
fine.
no, 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 no. I've got it. I've got
Okay.
exactly who it is.
Okay.
Um, Mr. Wilson, as we see from my personal quarters where my dwelling, the Mormon family that Brother
Oh,
Calvo used to live with.
that's good.
Uh, we see Mr. Wilson, Mrs. Wilson, what are you doing?
Uh, Mrs. Wilson, after exchanging like a look with her husband, tilts her chin up slightly and says, "We have learned of the miracles of God that our beloveds may well have found holy resurrection and brought back to this earth, and we seek to go to a paradise that they claim to be making."
Wasn't it Jesus Christ, the Lord our Savior, that once said that I am the resurrection and the life? The one who believes in me will live even though they die, and whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Didn't he not say that?
They nod along with you.
So are you saying that you've seen Jesus Christ himself?
She opens her mouth as if to say something, but I have the feeling that you're just gonna keep going.
No, no, because she's gonna immediately go, that was a rhetorical question, love. I know you have not seen the Lord our Savior Jesus Christ come down from his holy throne above and come to this little shit stain of Texas and come to you, Martha Wilson, and say to thee that I am returned and I am resurrected, because I know exactly what sins you be committing. So tell me, are you speaking amongst the rest of these good people, these hard-working, honest people that have loved ones that have passed on? Are you spreading lies amongst them saying that they're going to be able to have their family brought back to them in Springs? I know that's exactly where you'd be headed. That's the only way that road goes to out of town, unless you're going all the way up to Nevada.
Are we triggering fire and brimstone?
Yes.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, absolutely figured. I love it. That was an impassioned speech, and you are pointing. I would say that this whole thing violates your moral code. You get
Mhm.
to roll with presence or sensitivity.
We're going to go with sensitivity because she's seen things, and I think
Oh
that she is
shit, yeah.
very much just like she very recently has seen things, and she is casting that across her face. You can tell, um, and I am also. Ooh, I'm going to save that. Never mind. You know what? Uh, I'm going to add on to it. I'm going to mark that one-way stagecoach ticket out of town, and I'm going to say, if you're looking to bring back family members or if you're looking to do your family good, you know what you can do? You can take this ticket right here and you can leave. Don't go to Clear Springs. Don't go to anywhere else. You can go ahead and take your family and you can go to Utah with the rest of your folk. I've heard that's where they've been going on. And I'm going to use that to mark with advantage.
Incredible. Yep. Go ahead.
Uh, that's fantastic. That's a 14.
Holy fucking shit. Okay. On a 10 plus, they disperse and or are regretful. I mean, yeah, that's both. Right? Is like they disperse, so they're gonna return to El Paso and they are regretful. And you know what the fun part about this is? Them being regretful is a unexpected resolution of your dwelling prompt because of the fact that part of that was like they get that you would suspect they get a small amount of pleasure from making you feel like an imposter, and
Yeah.
to that answer is just like they were constantly rubbing their familiar bonds in your face to show you that you're not like them.
Hmm.
So shit, I mean, you want to kind of like narrate the wrap up of that and just be like and just tell us how like this scene plays out from there.
Uh, I think this is going to lead into her walking through the crowd and kind of being like, "Oh, I know of you, and I know exactly who you're speaking of, who you're trying to beat back. The the person that would manhandle women down at the casinos and everything like that. That's somebody that you want to bring back to life. And she's not being very sweet to them. She is calling out the transgressions of every single person that they're trying to bring back, except for the children, and be like, is that somebody that you really want to set loose on this town again? Do you remember how much they drained your bank account and everything, and how much you would weep to me and weep to me? To the point where like people are like, this isn't fun. We're not having a good time. This is actually doing more damage to us. And so they just start slowly from the back drifting off. People don't want to receive her ire. And then it just spreads out until there's nothing but the Wilson family left. And then
Incredible. Go ahead.
yeah, and she's just breathing heavily and looking at them and then just puts her hair back and then folds her hands neatly and looks at them.
Mm, I love it. Marshall, who do you want to request a vulnerable scene from?
It's who I have not met in a while over like I think almost half a dozen sessions at this point. Mother Calvo.
Oh, okay. Okay. Are we gonna have some tea?
We're gonna have some tea.
Ooh,
Okay.
okay. Good to know. Is this yeah, I'll let y'all think about like what the frame of that scene is going to be and whose vice is being indulged. Um, but I do want to check on Graves real fast. Um, was there anything else you wanted to do? Because I have other
No.
thoughts, but I want to hear if you were going to say anything.
No, I didn't have anything
Hmm.
specific that I was aiming
Where
for.
where does Graves go after leaving the Shields home? After Ruth Calvus like stomp off and deal with things like as the afternoon carries on, where does Graves find himself?
I think back in El Paso, because that was the original aim, and he just kind of like had veered, had a nice little detour back to El Paso, probably to stop looking like he was been in a mind collapse because he realizes maybe that's not good for social interactions that he needs.
You clean up in your dwelling.
Yeah,
It's
and
it's been a while like that
yeah,
since we've actually focused on like Graves's proper home, the host's house. I mean, has has this place been basically ignored? Like, has Graves actually ever really slept?
I don't think like there is much sleep happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he has not really been here very much. Like occasionally, maybe when it's convenient. And this is the only place he needs to, like, like if he needs to go there, he'll go. But most of this place is untouched. And I think this is a good place to sort of like pop in that very short threat mask that I owe.
Ooh, yes, I would love to hear it. Please do.
Because as Graves walks in, and he sees just sort of the accoutrement from Bartholomew. We see that telegram from a distant city, and it's from a cousin, we think. Doesn't really matter who it's from, but it is about the unpaid debts, not just that he owes, but that other people owe. And we flash back to before the shooting, before all of this. And we're actually out behind the Red Rock Cantina. Um, it's the middle of the night, and Graves and another man are arguing about cheating on cards. Because Graves, he occasionally has. It's just slightly, a little bit. But he never actually, like, steals from people. He never takes from people who don't have anything. It's always just for those, those rich fucks that maybe just put down the tiny bets. And this guy, they've been watching each other cheat. And he's watched this guy take somebody's last dime multiple nights in a row. and they get into a fight, a physical altercation. And Graves decides maybe things would be better without him around. And we cut, and there's a shot, and it's black. And then we're back in Graves' house.
How are you cleaning yourself up?
I don't know how they did it in the Old West. Probably like a basin of some
Yeah.
sort. Like, yeah, like he doesn't live in a nice place. This dude didn't have a lot of money that wasn't from random gambling and like odd jobs. Like this, so just like stripping down, getting the mind gunk off, you know. This is probably the only time you see him with like any sort of real skin exposed, like, and he's almost looks like a person. Yeah, a fucking rag in a basin. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. As you are, cleaning yourself up, ragging the basin, looking in the mirror, you hear like a slight creak, like someone settling into like a wooden chair that's at the corner of the room, and before you even turn around, you immediately smell like copper and ozone.
Yep.
And as you turn around, your sibling War is seated in this wooden chair, has like a newspaper flicked out in front of him. And we had the confessional scene, but did we have a have we had a description of what War looks like?
Actually, I don't think I ever saw.
Yeah, you just heard his voice.
Here, what's this cat look like?
Yeah,
Describe
well,
it.
I'm asking the group to tell me what this
Yes.
cat looks like. I would like let's get a detail from all of y'all. I mean, I feel like War is an encapsulating concept, so I'm gonna say I'm gonna call on whoever wants to say things first. Actually, yeah, I'm not gonna handpick y'all. I'm gonna say everyone except for B can contribute something building off of the other. B can finish it off by like what distinguishes like the horseman nature, the war, like everything else is like physical or otherwise sensory. I want B to give us the supernatural thing.
My question is he also in a host?
Not trapped. He it is mortal form, but not in the way that Graves operates
It's
on.
chosen. It's not like clinging to.
Ooh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Oh, does he even have a singular form, or does he like possess different people? That's a good
I
question.
think it's yeah.
Ooh.
If I can riff off that, I'm going to
Yeah.
say that it's a soldier from the Fort Bliss, and Graves would have seen them. So it's a soldier from Fort Bliss, but it's clearly, and I'll let everybody else tell you why. It's not the soldier's not in control.
So we have a soldier possessed by war.
Mhm.
Anything you want to throw into that chaotic? Like any visuals that we see with the way this person looks?
I think the interesting thing is, yes, this is a soldier in a uniform, but the badges that this soldier has on don't accurately describe the living soldier's rank, but rather the
Oh.
rank of war.
So it's just a fucking
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
almost a comically mocking
A
adornment,
bevy.
like just like it's like jangling slightly. It's almost it's like it's mocking or comedic in some way. It's
Yeah.
dark, humorous, in the way that only
A
immortals can express.
plethora.
Yes, and I mean, and B, what's the noteworthy supernatural element of the way that your sibling war has possessed this mortal form.
Did Wes contribute?
Oh, I thought. Oh, sorry, my bad.
Uh, what is Graves's eye glow color?
It's like a cat in the dark, so it's kind of like that greenish, bluish.
Yeah, let's take some like Salem's Lot slash Midnight Mass. And they just have that kind of amber glint. War's eyes have that
Mm-hmm.
kind of amber glint to them when they catch light just right.
Oh, that's good. That very Midnight Mass. I love it. And I think the way this otherworldly supernatural thing is that it almost feels like the air buzzes around War. It gets warmer
Mm-hmm.
around them. Like the way, and not just like warmer like the air temperature, but warmer the way it is when you're really close to a person and you've been like in a physical encounter with them. It's like your body heat.
Yeah.
It's very upsetting to mortals, I imagine.
Oh, probably. Whatever's going on with this soldier, well, that's not your problem.
Nope.
But you can turn around and you see that War is seated there holding the newspaper, and it's the El Paso Times, if is on it. You can see that today's date, October 26th, is there. However, it doesn't say October 26th, 1881. It says October 26th. 1876. It was like he's like holding like this older issue. He's like flipping through, and he just is sitting there, and it starts reading from this article. When you regard him, he says, "Horse thief hanged at sun up," written by Agatha Edwards. And he recites that he's like, this gentleman named Edward was hanged as a horse thief, caught this morning, and he's just very casually reading from it, and being like, is like, while no known associates of this horse thief have since been apprehended, he was promptly hanged by the marshal at sunup. Doc Albers was present to confirm death. Blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. Bullshit. And taps his finger to the page and says, the thief attempted to steal a pair of intended work mares on a ranch owned by the El Paso Tin Smelting and Mining Company. Melvin Stackpole's wife, Alma Stackpole, was present for the hanging to confirm the identity. But it's just blah, 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 blah. He just is just reading this article and closes the paper and actually looks at you and says, very interesting things occurring today and in the very near future, sibling.
Are they?
Just thought I'd swing on by, give you a bit of a warning, a heads up. Things are changing in the American West, not just in El Paso. Does this host of yours have a clock?
He
Looking
looks
around the room.
around and like just sort of instinctively opens a drawer and pulls out a pocket watch that definitely was won it was gambled. This is too nice for this man. And flicks it open and turns it to War.
He looks at it, and the clock hand shows like 2:58, second hand ticking over to 2:59, and he just kind of leans back and he says, "Tell me, sibling, what's it like being stuck? This form of yours, you're anchored, yet you do not return. Why is that?"
I don't know how yet. Do you?
I'm not anchored, and this is not really a host, temporary convenience with which to visit you. I am presently many places, unlike yourself. In fact, right now I'm somewhere very significant. Probably the most significant place of the American West. It's about to be, at least. Oh, sibling,
If only you were there.
He's like the second hand's ticking. It's getting closer to it, once it ticks over and it's 3 p.m. He like closes his eyes and takes in a deep, like inhaled breath, like he is relishing something far away. And he just says,
Oh, sibling. October 26th. It is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Right now, I am in a little town known as Tombstone, Arizona, and shots have just been fired outside of the OK Corral. Oh, sibling, this is quite possibly one of the most significant acts of violence this side of the world. It rings out across this place like a dolorous bell. You'll hear its effects in the near future.
I'm sure. I always do.
he folds the newspaper over his arm and he says,
Remember the names I mentioned. You'll be feeling your own tide of violence very soon. You may not be able to sense it, it is not your domain, but I can feel the hum, the air stirring, the storm approaching. Do you know the old saying about if you want peace? I believe the Latin was si vis pacem parabellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. Good luck figuring out your predicament, sibling. Call on me if you need me.
Good luck in Arizona. I don't think you need it.
And War steps out of your house and vanishes.
And he just puts his face in his hand.
That counted as another mastermind clue, by the way. Him talking, him reading the article, the news article about Edward's hanging.
I thought it might.
Mm-hmm. And
oh my god.
Let's have that vulnerable scene between Mother Ruth and Andrew, and then that'll bring our day face to the close. Where are we going to find the two of you?
I think Mother Ruth is still on the road because the marshal's coming on a back, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, I'll just let you set up the scene and narrate it however you see fit.
Yeah, I think the Wilson family is drifting off now, finally. Mother Calvo having made a point and is just like adjusting and then goes, reaches for the flask, remembers that she gave it to Graves. He goes, damn it, I need a drink. And just starts like walking towards the cantina, and probably would bump into you,
Mm-hmm.
seemingly. Yeah.
Yeah. Mother Calvo. It's been a while.
Marshal, I've heard you've had your hands plenty full.
Yeah, so you've been staying out of El Paso as of late.
Somebody needs to deal with those folks in Clear Springs, and seeing as how it's dealing with the religious sorts, figured you wouldn't be the one for the task, so took it upon myself.
Yeah, so lots of things have been happening in El Paso as of late. Missed, well, an assemblage, which is rather unfortunate. Graves did as well, but then, well, he's a bit of an odd one, isn't he?
Mr. Graves had a bit of his own business to take care of. We were out at Fort Bliss.
Yeah. Uh, I've been making acquaintances with Lady Antonia. She's been a rather interesting sort of person.
Walk with me, I need a drink, and you can tell me more about this lady.
So I think we headed inside to the cantina, getting Mother
Mhm.
Calvo a drink.
big frothy beer. Scoop the top off with the stick and sits and just long sip and then pardon me. Tell me more about this lady of yours.
She's certainly not what I would call my lady. We don't have any sort of that semblance of a relationship, more closer to business partner at this point. She wanted this town's silver, as well as the rights to use the jail as she feels free to, as well as to have a conversation with Mr. Graves.
The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. Do you like how much control this lady seems to have over you?
Not particularly, but she knows a lot. She's been dealing with this sort of supernatural business for a while, a long while. And she knows, and that's great. Andrew Harrington just sort of just grits his teeth as though he's trying to contemplate saying something, but can't quite figure out how to say it.
Mother Calvo is going to touch him on the thigh and lean forward and is going to say, Easy, Marshal. As we all know, whoever is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules by his spirit shall take control of his city. Lean back a little bit.
There's a lot unexplained things happening in this town. I'm just caught in the crosshairs of it.
It weighs a lot on you, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You're carrying not only the sins of yourself, but the sins of this town upon your heart and your shoulders.
I try to make right by this town, but it still keeps on squirming away from me.
You're only one man, Marshal. What you need is someone to help guide you, as long as relying upon the others in the committee to help spread your oats. Would you like to tell me some of these things that weigh upon your heart, Marshal? And she's gonna nod over towards there's like a room in the
Yeah,
cantina. It's probably the closet. This is probably the
yeah,
fucking like pantry for the place.
yeah, yeah. I think with that, I think Andrew and Mother Calvo go into the closet.
Perfect. And I'll take your confession.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Five Hail Marys, three God our Fathers. I'm going to remove the condition Antonio's guiding hand because I have found a new person to guide.
I was just about to
And
say, yeah.
Antonio is now small fish to Mother Calvo. I have now become the
Yeah.
personal. I am. I'm a marshal's much more.
And that arm in a sling looks like it's taken care of.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Absolutely.
It's been long enough. Get
It's been
rid of
long enough.
it.
Get rid of it. Whose voice was that?
That was mine.
That was
That's
yours?
mine.
Okay, just
Sex
making
with
sure. Yeah.
sinners.
Damn,
Yeah.
you're getting around today, Mother Ruth.
Well,
Um,
I'm a clue
uh,
finder.
do you want clue or do you want a question?
Give me that clue.
All right, y'all think about that for a second.
Mhm.
Uh,
Also, did I sermonize to you, Marshal Harrington? Did you feel sermonized too?
Probably.
Take the word of the God our Father and put
Mhm.
that in your personal quarters
uh,
because
I, technically, I already have it, so
there you
like,
go.
Haven't used it
so
yet. Yeah.
uh, I have used it.
Oh, you have. So you get to add it
So
again.
yeah, so like, I just unmark it?
Unmark it.
Yeah,
Unmark it.
unmark it. Why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah,
Hell yeah, the word of God is back in your favor. All
There you
right.
go.
Let you think on that clue for a moment. Let's go ahead and get the dusk phase going here. And what we'll do is we're gonna do the dusk phase, and we're gonna at least set things up for the night phase, and then we're gonna go to stars and wishes. All right, let's talk about the things that trigger during the dusk phase. I believe we have a couple of moves that trigger during the dusk. Diamond Dave, you have the saloon. So you get to choose either to learn something about a threat or to gain an item.
I'm going to gain an item and I have to give it to somebody else. And I'm going to say, and this could be later on,
Mm.
but I'm giving it to the marshal. And what we did after the shootout at the Red Rock Cantina is Diamond Dave had all the bullets dug out of the ghost bullets, dug out of like where they were shot in the wall and stuff. And the one he got from his book, that book saved my life that you gave me, Wes. But he he had them refitted in brass. He put them back in shells, and so the item is a bag of ghost bullets for the marshal.
Bag of ghost bullets. Incredible. Do we have any other moves that trigger during the dusk that are being activated now? I don't believe so. All right. Let's paint the scene about the wounded knight real quick. Let's see. Oh, it's done. We're going to do, fittingly enough, the Exodus from El Paso. No one dares say El Paso is a ghost town, but everyone has to admit it gets a little empty during the season of the Wounded Knight. Yellow bellies quietly pack up and leave, meaning to return once the season has passed. How do those who remain take advantage of the situation?
I'm going to say Diamond Dave has used several homesteads to like stash stuff.
Mm.
People are gone. I don't know if they're dead bodies or if they're contraband, but he's using their homes to stash stuff. Probably other smugglers as well.
it's honestly a little bit of a nicer answer than Diamond Dave's. But like, animals have been taking up roosts in like the corners of like door frames because they're just not really getting opened up as much anymore.
I think with that, actually, we also see larger wild animals, maybe the occasional coyote, wander in to the outskirts of El Paso where they normally wouldn't, just kind of encroaching back to where people took their territory because the people are gone now, so they can go, you know, they can get up in their grills. People are gonna come back with like a coyote sleeping in their house. It has happened before.
Um, some of the kids that remain in the town have now found like areas to smoke cigarettes and like do things like just like kind of like it's like most of the adults are leaving again. So this is the time where we kind of get to like do a little bit of like a Lord of the Flies situation where it's just like roaming packs of children you start seeing around, kind of adding on to the animals thing. You know about me and groups of children when it comes to CFB games.
I
They gotta be
Feral
roaming
cats.
around. They gotta be feral and roaming around and ready to get these hands.
love it. Do we want to tackle answering a question, or will we save that for next time?
Let's answer a question. Let's do it.
I've got Jimmy Pike. I know where Jimmy Pike is.
Let's hear
Hell
it.
yeah.
So we got a few clues for that. We got exactly four. Unless the Ruth Calvo clue that she got from the vulnerable scene is going to be for that one as well.
Um, Yeah, we'll go ahead and say that. We'll go ahead and note that, like in the Red Rock Cantina, while we were getting the sweet confessions of Marshal Harrington,
Scuffing boots.
yeah, something that Marshal Harrington said um, that like triggers something for like the Sawtooth Ridge in Mother Calvo. Harrington has no idea, but when he was like going and talking to Alma Stackpole, um, she noted in some conversation that she had had some shingles missing from her ceiling after some of these visitations with the Blue Boy or something. And so I'm going to say that relates to Sawtooth Ridge.
Hmm.
Shingles missing on multiple houses in El Paso.
All
I don't
right.
know if that helps your
That works.
theory. It
Yeah, that
might.
works. Yep,
Okay.
that works.
I want to hear it. All right, give it
So
those.
so basically he is Jimmy Pike is hiding in the attic of the Golden Spur Saloon. But he's
Hmm.
moving around. That's where he's
Hmm.
at now. He's been in other places. And so the way that I got that is Annette's diary kind of ruled out places that he's not, but the Texas Ranger badge that was found buried was found maybe behind the Golden Spur. Um, the reports of the strange attics, and then shingles missing from multiple roofs. Uh, uh, the Golden Spur's missing some too. And then what ties it all together is that strange symbol that was on the inside brim of the captain's hat. And this came up with our other when we were talking before. That strange symbol is used to confuse and ward off the Ghost Riders. That's why they've not been able to find Jimmy.
Hmm.
And Diamond Dave or one of his employees have found that symbol on the back door of the Golden Spur.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Okay, that's going to be a +1, so you can roll 2d6. Try it out, Daniel.
I don't know, man. I think this guy wrote the game or something.
And we've got a 4 and a 4 and 8. That makes it 9.
9. So it's going to be um, an unwelcome complication or pursuing the opportunity will be more dangerous. Um, I mean, I feel like it's going to be pretty. If you are indeed planning to destroy the Ghost Riders, since it seems like you're in Jimmy's camp right now. Whatever the point is, I think I'm going to keep it simple and say that it's going to be a heightened state of danger when dealing with it, as opposed to adding an unwelcome complication. Because I still have this complication about the Fifth Ranger, that is a real fucking humdinger. That I'm happy to announce in a little bit. So. Yeah, we'll keep that as like it's going to be an increased danger. So I'll make a note. More dangerous. All right, that's awesome. Yeah, Diamond Dave is the Fifth Ranger. I think we'll call it there for now, and we'll set up unseen and stuff like that. The night phase actions. Next time, let's go ahead and jump to stars and wishes, and then I'll have a stinger scene for you guys. Whoever wants to go first.
I've got my notes ready. So for Narr, I just like that scene of Graves walking back um, from the mine, and how you described him as just being dirty and disheveled. And then at the end, the bookends, we get to clean him up. The whole scene with you and the Shields homestead with Mother Ruth, and I also like that Graves' home is just like basically untouched, like it's just not Death's mortal. This mortal shell is Death's home, not the house that the host lives in. Wes, I don't know why I have got. I think. Oh, I got it. I got it. I like how you have Mother Ruth set up basically with Annette until Grave shows up, and I liked your leftovers reference. And I like the Mother Ruth getting some Wes bleed into. That's my whole day. I like that.
That's
Um,
my whole day.
Chaotic, big star in the very beginning. I think maybe one of the first things you said was I think Wes was ready to just like let people let the role lie and let people side characters die, they die. and you had just spent all last session like trying to keep them alive. So just chaotic and Harrington not wanting to lose citizens. A big star for that, and being on your best behavior with Mrs. Stackpool. That was good. Um, yeah, he's not causing any trouble. Easy there, lady. And then Alex, look at these guys: Dr. Clarkson, Wellington, Alma Stackpole, War. I mean, this is like these are some like heavy hitters that you brought out today, and a big star for you showing us kind of like some upcoming rules changes to the between, and you're kind of showcasing them, and I appreciate that. And using war to foreshadow the siege was awesome. And I always say this every time. I think the name we should change this from um, near enough to hell to are you triggering fire and brimstone?
Absolutely. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm gonna second that. All the things Daniel said. Using war, Alex. I love that. That's such a cool way to do a mastermind clue. You always sneak them in so perfectly, so smoothly. Like it's always like exactly what the narrative needs, like right then. And I frankly didn't expect you to do that, and that was really fun. Plus, I love all of your side characters. They're all so fun. I love getting to see Dr. Clarkson again. That was great. Love that man. I just the pacing of this, the fact that we're about to do the siege and that you foreshadowed, and I want to really give you props for the Tombstone, Arizona, October 26th, 3 p.m. shit. My God, that was masterful. That was cool. I'm a huge nerd. As soon as you were like saying the dates, I was like, oh, they're doing something. They're doing something. Like, that was delicious. That was a really cool way to ground us in the reality of the world we're playing in. That was super fun. And Daniel, Diamond Dave, I love this shifty little man. Like, so good. Like, you play him so affably. And then we started with that, like, mask where he's just like, I'm sorry I got it. I'm sorry, man. That sucks. That sucks. And just, it's brutal. And you chop his hand off. That's like, and you kept that affable nature the entire time. And that I think makes him a very interesting bootstrapper. That makes him a very interesting, less than moral guy because he is likable. He is like intensely likable. And that's what's really fun about him. And I'm interested to see how he feels about the railroad thing because he's kind of into it. How is he gonna fare in this? Like that's really I'm so interested. Yes, I love the way you're playing Diamond Dave. It's very fun. Um, I also love the way Andrew has spent, I think, 2 sessions now being forced into polite conversation, I think. Like, and you can kind of tell he hates it, but he also has to do it.
Someone has to be the nice guy.
Someone's gotta like be reasonable and talk to people and do all the schmoozing. And I really love it that you've done this like twice now with great skill. Great skill. It's very Andrew Harrington. And I really loved that. It was so great. It's so great. You've been such a good marshal lately. Like you're actually doing your job and I love it. You know, maybe you get to do some crimes as a treat. I don't know.
I want a little crime as a treat,
A
but
little crime as a treat.
but I have to settle for Mother Calvo.
Exactly. That's, you know what? I think that you get a little Mother Calvo as a treat. Like, Mother Calvo, you were on a fucking tear today.
The left and right hand of God.
I hope she has said that at some point. I love her.
Probably.
I love your fire and brimstone shit that you pull out. The fact that you're like, I'm gonna flip some tables. I'm gonna pull something from my main man JC's book. Like that was really good. That was a very cool way to approach that scene. And the fact that she's like affectionate with all of these different NPCs. The fact that she's like very affectionate with Annette. She has this very interesting way of dealing with people. And it doesn't just happen with the Vigilance Committee. It like extends to all of these other people in El Paso and elsewhere. And that's what a fascinating character. What if
She has an
what
intimacy
layers? She
problem.
does. She has so many layers. I love her. And I love that you particularly Wes were like, no, we found Annette's diary and we read it. Like that's that still tickles me.
Mhm.
Stars to everybody. Stars. I can't wait to see how the siege goes. It's gonna be a fucking disaster.
Yeah, I'll go real fast. Just to say that was really fun. I loved the vulnerable scenes we got with Ruth today, and both of them involved her being promiscuous in different situations. I just thought those were both very enjoyable scenes, getting to see her whole nature, especially with Harrington, because we haven't, as was pointed out, we hadn't gotten Harrington and Mother Calvo in a vulnerable scene together for a minute, so that was great. Yeah, I know Daniel Starr to the Alan McDowell in the flashback, but also kind of like bringing him into the fore, kind of like the whole concept of bringing the old gang back together. It again. I am going to continue to star the concept of playing the bootstrapper as Diamond Dave, because I think that's really awesome, and it fleshes out this whole angle of El Paso in a really fun way. And now we get to use the Red Rock Cantina and dance hall as this recurring location more so than just beyond that threat. And it's really just something I enjoy fiddling around with between this session and last. B, I absolutely adored getting to delight you with more war stuff, but then getting to I love what you said at the end there, which is like good luck in Arizona, you won't need it. Just great detail. Harrington, I love the way you interacted with Stackpole, and getting to explore this angle of like I hate this. I hate being here, but also like I'm manipulating people, and it's almost like you squirrely, greasy man. Absolutely love you. Big stars for having Dr. Clarkson come back into the narrative. Daniel, thank you for going to visit him. I love role playing Dr. Clarkson. I'm like a thirsty man in the desert. Like I'm just always it's a drink of fresh water for me.
God, I wish he provided clues. Like, just, oh man.
Use him to deal with things. He'll help
But
you.
like, we haven't been exercising
Yeah.
ghosts though. Like,
Yeah. And then also, star west to the moment with the Mormons. Again, like as I pointed out in the moment, it turned into like somehow like a resolution of that dwelling thing that was established back in session one. So that was unexpected, but really cool. Mother Ruth is coming out on top in more ways than one. And wishes. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing some resolution of things. I'm looking forward to running the siege, because I've actually never gotten to finish an El Paso campaign where the siege happened. So I'm excited to do that layer. I very much am wanting to see some like large vigilance committee actions being endeavored together. Like I love these individual scenes or group scenes, but I'm like, where's our like all hands on deck, all present and accounted for moments? I'm looking forward to one of those. But yeah, that's me.
yeah, a definite like. Again, I have to echo these stars for like, just like the mask prompts. Star for Graves mask in particular, because that's like it's not death's past, but like the host's past, which I find very fascinating. Like, oh no, Graves, he did probably kill a person like before he died. Oh, like it was like really soon. Uh, Mother Calvo, for going for the clues instead of the questions, choice mechanical mastery of the system, but however, at the same time, I have a question that's burning in my heart.
Oh.
Because it's this bit has been like a long game ongoing, but however, like I'm not sure if it did get answered in a Mask of the Past. But however, I think it would be very interesting for Harrington to find out a particular thing.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'll certainly keep that in mind then,
Uh,
because that's interesting to me.
Star for like Alex for echoing what Diamond Dave did last session by giving giving Birdie a key to the warehouse. My God. They have like they have access to everything in town, and I'm just like, please don't. Evil, awful, terrible. Um, but also like Diamond Dave, you're like fleshing out the setting of El Paso of like, no, he's got his fingers in everyone's pies. Just like he's like, yeah, body moving, we got you. Smuggling, we got you. Dr. Clarkson, we really haven't had a proper conversation. Like, I've got a bunch of like resources at your disposal, and I'm just like, please do not have my boyfriend commit more crimes. I don't need this. Uh, but also like just being like a sort of a foil to Harrington for like being also a very slimy person, but slimy in a different way. Uh, it's just very fun. But yeah, I'm. Oh God, we have so much coming up this night. This next couple phases. Just we have like two threats to be resolved. I'm just like, very stressful.
Well, indeed. Very stressful indeed. I want to give a star for my two scene partners today. I gotta mark Diamond Dave off my dance card.
Mhm.
Somehow, I'm gonna catch you these hands. They're gonna catch you. Um, an opportune moment for you to confess the sins that you've been committing with the Reynolds and Lady Antonia. Diamond Dave, star for you for Diamond Dave, being terrifying. In that very like you said, just like nonplussed way. Like nothing ever bothers Diamond Dave. Everything is just yeah. I'm watching the Penguin. I'm seeing a lot of like parallels with Diamond Dave and the Penguin of like even if things are going wrong, we're gonna find a way to work with it, and it's all part of the plan. We're all working towards the plan. You just gotta listen to me and stick to me, and we're gonna go. There's a little bit of Dutch from RDR2 in there as well, but I think it's a little bit more successful. Um, but very just like profit and chaos, my friend. Yeah, exactly. Like, but also like it's terrifying seeing like how calm he's able to be in the removal of somebody's hand, but also how calm and friendly and genteel he is with like Dr. Clarkson, and just like just like very like friendly, but even in like like slightly antagonistic. So you know that it's slightly antagonistic. We know Dr. Clarkson probably doesn't, and it's like, and it's very unsettling. Fantastic scene with War. Uh, Bartholomew, fantastic working with War, your sibling. I can see the resemblance. Um, I do like the voice that you picked, Alex, because when I saw the GIF of Jason Isaacs from the Death of Stalin with all the medals, I was even hearing some Jason Isaacs, even though I don't know if you did that purposely. I was hearing that the back of the throat rumble that he's got that you were putting on War.
Ah, yes, I
Um,
did. Yeah, yeah.
but it was like, but it felt distinct. But I was just like, oh my God, yes, no, this is somebody that I totally would see Jason Isaacs playing though. But like bringing Tombstone into it and everything, you're like, oh, what time is it? 3 p.m. Perfect. And I'm just like, you son of a
That's
bitch.
the thing. I wrote down that idea for him doing that when I was first coming up with like ideas for like War appearing in this game. And I was like,
Yeah.
what violent stuff happens in the West around the time of the Wound? And I'm like, oh, the OK Corral gunfight happened on
Hmm.
October 20th. I'm like, I'm going to incorporate that somehow. So I was waiting to throw that in there. I'm
A
glad I got.
shocking bit of violence, which that would be. It's not a lot of people. That would be a shocking bit of violence for a place so, like of like how it's growing. So no, that was very sick. Marshall Harrington. Um, I love how polite Andrew Harrington was with Alma in a way. But it was like playing badminton with one another. There was just enough Harrington backbiting there to be like, I am I there are all of these old ladies around me, and they're all trying to control me, and I have to have some kind of control with one of them, and so I'm going to play your game, but we're playing it my way. And you very felt that through the entire interaction, and I very much enjoyed that. It was very cool. It was very nice scene between y'all two as well. My wish, yeah, let's get the gang back together. I think we also need a proper like Calvo and Diamond Dave. Like you're new, and then him being like, "You've been gone," and it's like, okay, an understanding. Two business people in the town, just separate business. But yeah, both profit and chaos. I would, yeah. So I think it'd be interesting, a nice little meeting of the minds. Yeah, no, sick. I can't wait for the siege. I've never gotten as far as the siege, and so I can't wait to see what happens. Let's get it. Let's get it.
Any other stars or wishes?
I'm probably gonna die next session, so
Fair. Then before we
Make it
go,
dramatic.
a stinger scene. We see a light swinging overhead, illuminating beneath it a table enshrouded by a vignette of darkness, maps of El Paso, the surrounding territories laid out, sketches of various lines and geographical shapes have been noted in undiscernible patterns. And there are various figures clustered around the table. We see Edward is speaking to the amassed and gesturing at the map. Lurking at the fringes, we see Isabella pacing almost like a cat, just reflecting on the plans in her mind as she also tunes an ear to Edward's conversation to their various lackeys. And as Edward is speaking, we pan around the room and we see of the listeners the familiar shifty eyes of Bird, and next to him a woman in black riding pants, a red and black striped blouse, long hair pulled back, in a kind of like a tight ponytail, bit of like a swagger to her. Next to her, a large man in his 50s with a handlebar mustache, a long black wool coat, and a bowler hat. However, notably, where his right arm should be, there is indeed a spectral arm that overlays a stump of some old injury. And they're all listening raptly as Edward says,
Now, before we can proceed to the next stage, we gotta once and for all deal with this matter of the witnesses. And we gotta make sure that if the people of El Paso do not do what is smart, that when we hit them, we not only hit them hard, but we take out this pesky committee. So that's where I want each of you to come in.
He looks at the man with the spectral arm. He says,
Sergeant Hammett, I believe you have some familiarity with Mother Calvo.
and the man says,
I do recognize her face from Antietam. It would be fitting for a pair of old soldiers to see each other on the field of battle once again.
Edward nods and looks over to the woman. He says,
Felina, I need you to deal with this, Mr. Graves. You and your outlaws. I believe you can rout the wily bastard.
Felina just nods. And he says,
And Bird, from one businessman to another. If Mr. McMahan proves to be more trouble than he's worth, take him out.
And then he turns his attention over to a spot of darkness in the far corner of the room, and he says,
As for you,
but he gets cut off by the harsh clack of spurs and boots as, like, stepping out of the darkness, we see the bounty hunter with his leering, half-rotting visage, cocking his gun, and he says,
I know my part in this, Mr. Reynolds. The marshal is mine.
And Edward says, after like a nod,
Very good.
then before we, and then he's cut off by the door opening as a pair of ghostly outlaws
come like dragging a third figure in, a figure who is very much immortal, a living flesh and blood person, and throw him to the floor. All eyes turn to this disturbance, and one of the ghost outlaws says, "We found this one sneaking around outside." And the woman identified as Felina strides up and grabs this man by the back of the collar and like hoists him up. And we see his face illuminated in the light, a little haggard, a little roughed up, but not too wounded. And as the light swings overhead and the shadows are cast, we can see that no one here recognizes this figure, but we, the viewer, do, because this is a face almost identical, a little scruffier, to the Fifth Ranger seen in a photograph. And Isabella comes from the corner of the room and says, "I don't believe we've met before. Now, I'd hate for this affair to turn ugly for you, especially for such a handsome face like yours. So tell me, what did you think you could accomplish coming here tonight?" And in this moment of uncertainty, the Fifth Ranger just kind of gives a slight smile and just says, "I did not mean to intrude at all. I was looking to, well, frankly speaking, I want to say I'm here on official business, but I haven't really done official business for the better part of a year. I'm a former Texas Ranger. Let's just say that I think I understand a little bit of what you folks are gearing up to accomplish, and was hoping to come see if I could offer my services." And there's something about the way he speaks, something uncomfortable, something distant, almost uncanny about the way his eyes are slightly unfocused at any given time. And Isabel doesn't question, but she does notice that there's something strange about this man. And she just kneels down in front of him, puts her hand on her chin and says, "What's your name, young man?" And he just looks at her and he says, Zechariah Whately, at your service."